to take you through the history of modern Kenya or modern Kenya. So the economic and social development of Kenya between 900 to 945 are we together. So let us look at the development of Kenya, So cash crop development was linked much to the white settlers who occupied the Kenyan highlands. So the cash crop economy, or the cash crop kind of agriculture that was introduced in Kenya, it was attached, or it linked so much on the white man, or on the white settlers. These are the people who came and occupied the empty areas of Kenya, the highlands of Kenya, the land that once belonged to the Kikuyu, the land that once belonged to the Masai, the land that once belonged to the Akamba people. Are we together? So the development of cash crop growing, it was linked to the white settlers who occupied the Kenyan highlands. So the first crops to be grown were maize. Altogether, that's why they introduced what they call the industries that deal in grains. Are we together? So the first cash crop, or the first crops that were grown were maize for cash and potatoes for food. So the Kenyans learned how to plant maize and the potatoes for food, and maize were taken to be cash crops by then, before the introduction of coffee, tea, and etc. The major economic product that was taken to be economic crop, or a cash crop, that was maize, but specifically potatoes were for food. Are we together? For home survival. And maize, it was for sale. Are we together? So Lodi, there is a man called Lodi Delamale. This is a man who experimented with farming in the what we call Usain Ghosh Plateau, where he produced the first wheat crop successfully in 1907. So in 1907, a man made an experiment called the Lodi Delamale, and he was trying to experiment wheat to see how it can survive, to see whether it can grow in Kenya. And by 1907, he succeeded in his experiment, and then later on, they introduced the growing of wheat. So in 1904, tea was introduced at Limalu, and this sisal was planted at Thika. So in 1904, tea was introduced at Limalu, at Limulu. So this also later on added value in the economic struggle, or in the economic development of Kenya. By 1920, sisal was had become the second most important plantation crop in Kenya. Rubber was also grown on plantations near the coast. Near the coast, rubber was also grown. We are looking at the economic and social development of Kenya. So we are seeing tomato, and the tomato. We have Cape Good berries were also grown. Are we together? These are the crops that were introduced by the white settlers in order to boost what we call trade. Are we together? So Africans grew crops which they were familiar with: igi, simsim, and guinness. So the crops that Africans had knowledge on, or the crops that Africans had knowledge on, for them they continue to grow such crops. But those that wanted Africans to acquire some knowledge from the people who introduced it, it was so much influenced by the white settlers. But for guinness and the simsim, Africans had knowledge, or they were familiar with them. For them, they grew them mostly, and the others were grown for the whites to take as the cash crops. We have, by 1904, the policy of reservoirs was being introduced, or was beginning, where Africans had to supply labor, and they were known to grow cash crops. Are we together? So in 1908, Coffee Planters Association by 1908, the Coffee Planters Association was formed, where coffee trees were got from missionaries. Baganda called them endokwa. So the endokwa were supplied by the missionaries for the Africans to start growing them under the Coffee Planters Association. Altogether, Lord Damale, who made an experiment on wheat, later introduced coffee growing near Thika. Altogether, near Thika. So Lord Damale later introduced the coffee near Thika, and by 1920, large tea estates were established around Nakulu, where we find in the Nakulu or National Park. By 1925, two companies from India were set up were set up on large-scale tea plantations at Kericho. Altogether, by 1925, two companies from India were set up on large tea plantations at Kericho. Altogether, so between 1920 to 1921, the government encouraged maize growing. Altogether, maize growing. In 1935, altogether, Thurium was grown in Kenyan highlands. We look at this. These are kind of cash crops that were planted, that were being involved by different Africans. So vegetables and fruits were also introduced in Mau Hills. Mau Hills, where we are seeing is that even these are hills that were owned by the Mau people, who organized the Mau rebellion. Altogether, communication included the railway line, roads, telegraphy, and the waterways were also set or established. So Kenya-Uganda railway line began in 1896 at Mombasa and extended to several parts of Kenya. So in 1921, the railway line extended from Nakulu to Erondoti and Chitale, and then to Uganda. So within Kenya, the railway line extended to Nyeri. We have Nyeri, we have Nanyuchi, we have Thompson Falls, and Magadi. So feeder loads were constructed to simply to supply or feed the railway line station with good good transported feeder roads were constructed to supply or feed the railway line station with goods to be transported. So feeder roads enguudo ezebbalibbali ezettaka naye nga bazizimba bulungi ne ziba nga zijoininga to the railway line, that could easily make trade move smoothly, and that could make goods to reach the market center on time. So harbour at Mombasa developed due to the easy communication by the road and the railway line. So Lake steamer service on Lake Victoria was established, which boosted trade. So major ports like Kisumu, Jinja, Port Bell, Entebbe, Bukoba, Nyanza, and the Musoma were established, and this boosted water transport. So by 1930, Kenya's internal and international communication services had been established. So this later on boosted trade, and later on led the development of Kenya. So when we come back, we shall look at the document of the Devonshire White Paper 1923. Have a good day. Beg to submit.